Samantha Sam Carter had always been underestimated. From the quiet streets of her small hometown in Georgia, she had been told time and time again that her looks were a distraction. Pretty girls didn't become soldiers, people said. They didn't endure the grind, the mud, the exhaustion. They didn't survive Ranger School. But Sam had always known something about herself that others refused to see. She was tougher than any expectation, stronger than any insult, and smarter than anyone who doubted her. The morning she arrived at Fort Benning, Georgia, the air was thick with the smell of wet earth and gunpowder. Fog clung to the training grounds, curling around the obstacles, the barbed wire. The towering walls designed to break rookies. Sam's duffel bag felt heavier than usual on her shoulders, not because of the weight, but because of the unspoken judgment that followed her everywhere she went. Her first encounter was with Private Jenkins, a lanky soldier with a permanent sneer. "You're in the wrong place, Princess," he whispered loud enough for half the line to hear as she signed in. "Rangers don't need models. Go home before you embarrass yourself." Sam's jaw tightened, but she didn't answer. She had learned early that words like that were designed to test the limits of patience. She kept her head down, her steps measured, absorbing the disdain as fuel for what was coming. By the time she met her drill sergeant, Staff Sergeant Hawkins, she was already exhausted from paperwork, orientation, and the long, humiliating process of being cataloged like some fragile exhibit. Hawkins was a man with the reputation of being unshakable. He had trained dozens of soldiers, tearing down weak pride and building unbreakable will. He glanced at Sam, one brow raised, and muttered something under his breath about her being too delicate for this. Delicate. The word stung, but it also lit something inside her. Sam had heard worse, but hearing it from someone like Hawkins made it tangible, real. She wanted to scream, to hit him with some kind of proof that she belonged. But the first rule of Ranger School was survival. Absorb, adapt, and endure. So she swallowed her fire and followed him onto the muddy grounds where the first tests would begin. The first obstacle course was a maze of ropes, mud pits, and climbing walls. The other recruits, mostly men, sneered as Sam approached the first wall. "You sure about this, Barbie?" one called. Laughter rippled across the line. But Sam's mind was clear, her body tight with focus. She gripped the ropes, swung, and launched herself over the wall with a strength that surprised even her. Landing on the other side, mud splattering her uniform, she heard a collective pause. The laughter died. That pause lasted only a moment. Then came the whispered remarks. "Lucky shot. Probably had help. That's just beginner's luck." Every word was a challenge, a gauntlet thrown down, and Sam took it as such. She didn't respond. She didn't need to. She just moved forward through every obstacle, every drill, every humiliating task the instructors threw at her. By the second day, the mockery intensified. Recruits mocked her every move, trying to throw her off during timed exercises. During push-ups, someone accidentally bumped her, sending her sprawling into the dirt. "Clumsy, aren't you?" he sneered. The other recruit snickered, and Sam could feel her cheeks burn, not with embarrassment, but with controlled fury. She picked herself up, ignoring the pain in her wrists and shoulders, and kept counting each push-up in her head. Louder and louder, until she finished every set. Then came the endurance run, 4 miles through uneven terrain, mud sucking at boots and rain pelting down like bullets. Sam felt the burn in her lungs, the pounding in her chest, the icy water soaking through her uniform. But when she ran past her doubters, their faces twisted with disbelief, she pushed harder. Each step was a statement, each breath a promise. She would not quit. By the third day, rumors had begun circulating about her. "She's a pretty face," they said. "Probably won't last a week." But Sam had seen the fear in some of the younger recruits' eyes. They weren't afraid of her being a threat physically. They were afraid she might prove them wrong. And in Ranger School, fear like that could be more dangerous than any obstacle. But even as she excelled, the ridicule never stopped. Instructors would occasionally make jokes at her expense. In the cafeteria, someone left a note on her tray. "Go home, you're just a distraction." Sam folded it quietly without a word, slipping it into her pocket to throw away later. Every insult was a stone, and she was building a fortress from them, one brick at a time. By the end of the first week, most recruits had formed cliques, and Sam was alone. But she didn't mind. Solitude gave her space to focus, to plan, to observe. She studied every drill, every command, every weakness in her peers. and slowly a plan began forming in her mind. She didn't just want to survive Ranger School. She wanted to dominate it. She wanted the drill sergeant, the men who mocked her, everyone who doubted her, to see something undeniable. Then came the moment that would set the tone for everything else. Hawkins, the drill sergeant, summoned her to his office. Sam approached cautiously. Inside, the room was Spartan, the walls bare except for a few charts and a clock that ticked louder than a gunshot. Hawkins didn't speak immediately. He simply looked at her, long and hard, as if trying to measure the weight of her determination against her appearance. Finally, he opened a file on the desk. Sam caught a glimpse of it. Her records, her physical test scores, her evaluations, every achievement she had earned quietly before arriving at Fort Benning. Hawkins's expression shifted, interest, then surprise, then respect buried under a veil of sternness. "Pretty girls don't belong here," he said, almost to himself. Then louder, "But maybe the file doesn't lie." Sam swallowed, uncertain. Could it really be possible that the man whose voice could terrify an entire room, the man who had been her harshest critic, might be seeing her differently? She didn't answer. She simply waited, standing straight, boots planted firmly, letting her silent defiance speak louder than any words could. And that was when she realized something crucial. The battle was not just about strength or endurance. It was about perception, respect, and proving that the person you were inside could never be judged by how you looked on the outside. Until that moment, Sam didn't know how close she was to the first real victory of her journey, but Hawkins' eyes were no longer filled with doubt. They were calculating, testing, and she knew this was her chance to prove not only that she belonged, but that she could rise above every expectation, every insult, and every obstacle in her path. The first week had been a test of endurance, patience, and character, but by the second week the real trial began. Sam Carter quickly realized that surviving Ranger School wasn't just about passing obstacles or keeping up with the physical demands. It was about weathering relentless mental warfare. Every day, every drill, every instruction was designed to break the weak, and to Sam, that meant the world was now watching her every move. She could feel the stares before she even entered the training ground each morning. Some were curious, some skeptical, some openly mocking. Yet there were moments when she noticed something else. Whispers of awe from those who had seen her complete the earlier obstacles, who had watched her push through mud and rain while the strongest men in her unit faltered. These fleeting moments of acknowledgement were small victories, but they mattered more than she could express. Her second encounter with Sergeant Hawkins came during the morning formation. The sky was overcast, a gray blanket that matched the tension in the air. The other recruits shuffled impatiently as Hawkins barked orders, his voice sharp as a whip. Sam stood at attention, heart pounding, body aching, muscles still sore from the previous day's endurance drills. "Carter," Hawkins called, his eyes locking onto hers like steel. "Today we find out if you belong here or if you've been surviving on luck alone." Sam swallowed hard. She didn't flinch. She had trained herself for moments like this, and she knew the drill sergeant wanted to see her reaction. Any hesitation would be noticed. Any sign of doubt would be exploited. She answered with calm precision, "Yes, Sergeant." "Good," he said, but the corners of his mouth didn't smile. "You'll lead the first team through the river crossing and the live fire exercise. Any mistakes and you'll answer for them." Sam's heart jumped. The river crossing was notoriously brutal. Fast currents, slippery rocks, cold water, and mental stress tests that had made weaker recruits retreat in fear. Leading a team meant responsibility, and responsibility meant that failure could have consequences not just for her, but for those under her command. As the teams lined up, Sam's own unit, mostly men, most of whom had doubted her from the start, looked at her with a mixture of skepticism and thinly veiled irritation. One of them, Corporal Matthews, muttered, "This is going to be a disaster." "She's just a girl. Too fragile for this." Sam didn't respond. She knew that words meant nothing here. Actions were what mattered, and she was about to prove that her actions could speak louder than any doubt, louder than any insult. The whistle blew, and the team plunged into the river. Cold water slammed into Sam's body, stealing her breath for a moment, but she pressed forward. She kept her eyes on the far bank, calculating every step, every handhold, every current. The team struggled behind her, some panicking, others fatigued. But Sam's voice cut through the chaos, precise and commanding. "Left, keep moving." Watch the rocks. Some of the men hesitated, looking at her like she was an illusion. How could someone so young, so slight, so pretty move with such authority in the midst of chaos? But Sam's determination was unshakable. She pulled one struggling recruit through the current, shouted instructions with clarity, and navigated the team across without a single casualty. When they reached the far bank, soaked and shivering, the silence was deafening. Hawkins approached, his boots crunching in the mud, eyes scanning every member of the team. Finally, he stopped in front of Sam. His gaze was unreadable, his lips pressed into a thin line. Then he spoke. "You didn't just survive that," he said quietly. "You led it. You kept your team alive, and you did it without losing your head. That's rare, very rare." Sam felt a flicker of vindication, but she didn't let it show. In Ranger School, pride could be dangerous. She nodded respectfully, letting her quiet confidence speak for itself. But the challenges didn't stop there. Later that day, during the live fire exercise, the team moved through a simulated urban environment, navigating tight spaces, crawling under barbed wire, and responding to the sudden shock of gunfire from blanks. Sam's team faltered when a smoke grenade landed nearby. The men panicked, yelling over each other, losing focus. Sam didn't. She moved among them like a force of nature, steadying their nerves, issuing commands with authority that no one expected from someone of her appearance. She pulled Corporal Matthews out of the line of fire when he stumbled, reprimanding him with calm precision. "Focus, Matthews. This isn't about luck. It's about discipline. Keep up or you endanger yourself and the team." By the end of the exercise, her team had performed flawlessly under pressure. The other recruits, those who had mocked her relentlessly, were silent. The realization hit them like a punch to the gut. Sam Carter was not only capable, she was exceptional. Yet, even with victories, the mockery did not vanish entirely. Some whispers persisted. "She's good. But maybe she got lucky. Wait until the endurance march. She'll crack. It's just a matter of time." Sam, however, had learned a secret. Luck was irrelevant. Strength was built in the moments when no one was watching, when pain and doubt clawed at you, when every instinct screamed to quit. She had endured that, and she would endure more. And then came the test that pushed her further than she had ever been pushed before, the night navigation exercise. Recruits were sent into the dark forest with only maps, compasses, and minimal supplies. Their task, navigate a 5-mile course and reach the extraction point before dawn. Failure meant disqualification. As darkness fell, Sam led her team into the forest. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves made the men nervous. Matthews, shaking, muttered, "I don't know if I can do this." "You can," Sam said firmly, gripping his shoulder. "You'll do it because I'm leading you and I won't fail. Follow my lead, eyes open. Step carefully. We move as one." Hours passed. The cold gnawed at their bones. Hunger and exhaustion whispered lies in their ears. And yet Sam's voice never wavered. She adjusted the route when a river overflowed, found dry footing in treacherous terrain, and motivated her team with words that were simple but full of authority. One step at a time. "You can do this. Keep going." By dawn, when the first rays of sun pierced through the trees, the team emerged from the forest, tired, soaked, and frozen, but alive. They had made it. And in that moment, something shifted. The men who had doubted her looked at Sam not just with surprise, but with genuine respect. Hawkins was waiting at the extraction point, arms crossed, expression unreadable.
He didn't immediately speak.
He simply observed her as she led her team, calm but commanding, their eyes following her without question. Finally, he said, "You weren't supposed to survive this intact, let alone lead others through it." "Maybe I misjudged you." Sam didn't smile. She simply nodded. She didn't need to. Hawkins' words, quiet but loaded with respect, were enough. And in that moment, Sam realized the truth. She wasn't here to prove anyone wrong. She was here to prove to herself that strength, courage, and resilience weren't determined by appearance or prejudice. They were determined by heart, determination, and the willingness to endure when everything else was against you. But even as victory tasted sweet, a new challenge loomed. Sam knew the real test was still ahead, the final obstacle course, the ultimate assessment of mental and physical endurance. And she also knew that some people would do anything to see her fail, to remind the world that a pretty face didn't belong in the Rangers. She tightened her boots, squared her shoulders, and whispered to herself, "Let them doubt. Let them mock. I'll show them all. The real journey had only just begun. By the third week, Ranger School was no longer a test of endurance alone. It had become a crucible, forging each recruit into someone unrecognizable from the person who had arrived. For Sam Carter, the stakes were higher than ever. Every day brought physical pain, mental strain, and the constant weight of doubt. Not just from others, but from herself. She had proven she could lead, that she could endure, but now she had to prove that she could survive under the most extreme conditions, when every muscle ached and every instinct screamed to quit. The next challenge was a multi-day field operation designed to simulate combat conditions. Recruits were deployed into the backwoods surrounding Fort Benning, given minimal supplies, and tasked with executing a mission under tight deadlines and unpredictable obstacles. Sleep deprivation, hunger, and physical exhaustion were only part of the challenge. The instructors watched closely, ready to punish hesitation or indecision with grueling penalties. Sam's unit fell into formation at the edge of the woods as night fell, the sun disappearing behind a thick canopy of pine trees. Her team was tense. Even the most seasoned recruits were visibly apprehensive. Corporal Matthews whispered, "We won't make it. She's pushing too hard for us." Sam didn't flinch. Her voice, calm and steady, cut through the tension. "We will make it. Focus. One task at a time. Follow my lead." She could see the doubt flickering in their eyes, the lingering skepticism. She didn't need to win their approval. She needed to earn their trust through action, and every step would be a lesson in leadership under pressure. The first obstacle appeared almost immediately, a steep, mud-slicked incline with heavy logs strapped across their backs. The team struggled. Some slid back down, knees and hands caked in grime. Sam took a deep breath, grabbed a log heavier than she could lift alone, and hoisted it with a roar of determination. "Step with me. Pull together. 1, 2, 3. Her team responded slowly at first, but her energy was infectious. Sweat poured down her face, her muscles screamed in protest, and yet she pressed on, lifting, pulling, and encouraging. By the time they reached the top, the men who had mocked her earlier were gasping, exhausted, but somehow inspired. But the real trial came hours later, deep in the forest under near-total darkness. A simulated enemy ambush forced Sam to make split-second decisions. The sound of gunfire, blanks but terrifyingly realistic, echoed through the trees. Some recruits froze, panic overtaking their training. Matthews stumbled backward, tripping over a root and falling prone. Sam's instincts took over. She lunged forward, dragging him behind a fallen log. "Stay down, eyes up. Watch the shadows." Her voice was sharp but controlled, cutting through fear. Her own heart pounded, but she refused to let it show. In that moment, she realized that leadership wasn't about physical strength alone. It was about mental fortitude, courage under fire, and the ability to make others believe in you when they had every reason to doubt. When the ambush ended, Hawkins emerged from the shadows, his face illuminated by the flicker of the training fire. He didn't speak at first. He simply studied Sam as she assessed her team, checked their wounds, and plotted the next movement. The silence was deafening. Finally, he said, "Carter, I've watched many recruits come and go. Some make it through the physical tests. Some survive the mental challenges. Very few can do both while keeping their team alive and motivated. You might be one of them." Sam's throat tightened. Praise from Hawkins was rare and measured. It was more powerful than any medal or accolade. She nodded, saying nothing, letting the acknowledgement settle quietly in her chest. But even as she experienced this hard-earned recognition, a deeper challenge loomed. Rumors had begun to circulate that some recruits were deliberately undermining her efforts. Matthews, once quiet and fearful, now openly questioned her commands in moments of doubt. Others whispered about sabotage, about wanting to see the pretty girl fail in spectacular fashion. Sam knew she couldn't rely on anyone but herself. She began watching her surroundings more carefully, analyzing every behavior, every subtle sign of resistance or deceit. Every misstep from her team, intentional or accidental, was an opportunity to adapt, to teach, to overcome. She began using strategy and observation in ways she hadn't needed before, turning obstacles into lessons and doubts into fuel. The climax of the field exercise came on the third night. A grueling river crossing under moonlight, with flashlights that flickered over water as cold as ice. The river was higher than expected, the current stronger, and every movement required coordination. Sam took the lead again, calling out instructions with precise timing. "Step here. Brace yourself. Watch your footing." At one point, Matthews nearly slipped and Sam grabbed him mid-fall, pulling him safely to the shore. "You survive because I don't fail," she said, voice low but firm. The moment was more than physical, it was symbolic. She was proving not only her competence but the necessity of trust, of discipline, and of leadership grounded in action, not fear. By the time dawn broke, her unit had completed the exercise flawlessly. They were battered, exhausted, and soaked to the bone, but they had succeeded where many others had failed. And in that moment, something remarkable happened. The men who had doubted her, mocked her, and questioned her authority approached quietly. Some of them didn't say anything, but their eyes told the story. Respect had been earned, not given. Hawkins, standing at the edge of the riverbank, finally allowed himself a small nod. "You've done what I didn't think possible, Carter," he said. "Most would have broken under pressure. You didn't. You led. You adapted. You endured. That's what makes a ranger." Sam allowed herself a quiet breath of relief. This was not victory, not yet. But it was validation. Every insult, every doubt, every whispered joke had been transformed into proof. Proof that strength was defined by action, courage, and perseverance. Not appearance, yet even with her success, the whispers of doubt and envy persisted. She knew the hardest tests were yet to come. The final obstacle course, evaluations by her peers, and the ultimate scrutiny of the drill sergeant, who had the final say on who would wear the ranger tab. As Sam stood at the riverbank, mud caked on her uniform, muscles trembling from exhaustion, she realized one truth. The path to proving herself was not a straight line. It was a series of battles, some against nature, some against others, and some against the deepest doubts inside her own mind. And she had learned that true strength came from facing all of them. The real test was not over. The crucible of Ranger School still loomed ahead, and Sam knew that one misstep, one lapse in judgment, could undo everything she had fought for. But she was ready, because she wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting to prove that no stereotype, no prejudice, and no doubt could define her worth. And the final battle, the one that would decide everything, was about to begin. The morning of the final obstacle course arrived with a heavy sky, low clouds hanging over Fort Benning like a challenge waiting to be conquered. Sam Carter stood at the starting line, boots laced tight, uniform smeared with mud, muscles sore, and heart hammering. Not with fear, but anticipation. She had survived weeks of grueling tests, harassment, and near-impossible challenges. Now everything would come down to this. The course was designed to test every skill she had honed, the physical, the mental, the emotional. Rope climbs, mud pits, high walls, river crossings, live fire simulations, all connected in a relentless chain that left no room for error. Her competitors were the toughest soldiers in her class, men who had once mocked her, dismissed her, and whispered that she didn't belong. Now they would see who Sam Carter truly was. Hawkins' voice cut through the morning air, sharp and commanding. "This is the final test. Lead your team, complete the course, and prove why you belong here." Sam took a deep breath. She glanced at her team, those who had trusted her, those who had doubted her, and those who had tried to undermine her. All of them would follow her lead, willingly or not. She didn't feel pressure. She felt resolve. She had worked too hard, endured too much, and fought too fiercely to let anyone's doubt define her. The whistle blew. Sam surged forward, immediately pulling her team into sync. She moved with precision, barking commands where hesitation might have been fatal. Every obstacle was a test of leadership as much as strength. When a team member struggled on the rope climb, Sam didn't berate him. She coached, guiding his hands and feet, ensuring he didn't fall. When the mud pit threatened to slow them, she plunged in first, setting the pace. By the time they reached the river crossing, the tension was palpable. Rain had turned the bank to slippery clay, and the current was stronger than usual. Matthews, once her harshest skeptic, lost his footing midstream. Sam dove in, catching him before the current could drag him downstream. The team followed her lead, awed and silently grateful. As they scrambled to the opposite bank, Hawkins's eyes were fixed on her. There was no sneer, no doubt, just observation, calculation, and the faintest hint of respect. Sam could feel it like a heat rising from the ground beneath her boots. She pushed the team harder, ignoring the burning in her muscles and the fatigue that screamed for rest. The final stretch was a climb up the tower, a vertical wall of sheer rock and rope. Below, the team hesitated, panic flickering in their eyes. Sam's voice rose above the storm of doubt. "You are stronger than you think. Follow me, one step at a time." Her hands gripped the rope, her legs strained, but she didn't falter. Step by step, she scaled the tower until she reached the top and extended a hand to each team member, pulling them up one by one. When the last recruit scrambled over, exhausted and shaking, Sam exhaled for the first time in hours. Silence fell. The other teams, who had completed the course with less coordination, less leadership, and less cohesion, were behind. Some whispered among themselves, eyes fixed on Sam, unable to hide their astonishment. Hawkins approached, the mud on his boots blending with the wet earth, but his voice was calm and deliberate. "Carter," he said, "I've seen rookies fail, crumble, and quit. I've seen soldiers who had every skill but no heart. You've proven all of it. Strength, endurance, intelligence, leadership, and heart." Sam's throat tightened. Weeks of insult, doubt, ridicule, and perseverance had led to this moment. She didn't need to respond. Her silence, her pride, and the sweat on her uniform said more than any words could. Then Hawkins leaned closer, his voice low but unmistakable. "You were too pretty for the Rangers," they said. "Too delicate. Too inexperienced. Too much risk. But the file told me the truth, and you've made me look like a fool for doubting you." For a moment, Sam's mind flashed to all the early mornings, the insults in the cafeteria, the whispered mockery, and the obstacles that had once seemed impossible. Every step, every struggle, every small victory had led her here. And now the validation was undeniable. But the ultimate twist, the moment that would seal her triumph, came when the awards were handed out. Typically, the top performers were men, handpicked by the drill sergeant, praised for their physicality or cunning. But when Hawkins called Sam's name, the room went silent. The applause that followed was hesitant at first, then overwhelming, as the recruits, once doubters, rose to their feet, cheering the woman who had shattered every stereotype in the room. Sam received her Ranger tab, the symbol of achievement, endurance, and resilience. But more than that, she received respect, the kind earned through action, courage, and unwavering strength. Matthews, now standing beside her, offered a small smile of admiration. "I should have never doubted you," he admitted quietly. Sam simply nodded, a quiet satisfaction radiating from her. She didn't need apologies or recognition. She had done it for herself, for her belief in her own strength, and for the principle that courage and determination are not measured by appearance. As she walked across the training grounds, the sun breaking through clouds and casting a soft light on the mud-caked uniforms and exhausted faces of her peers, Sam felt a deep sense of triumph. She had been underestimated, mocked and dismissed, but she had endured, led, and conquered. Hawkins watched her from a distance, the respect in his eyes no longer hidden. He knew she was not only a survivor but a leader, someone who could inspire others under pressure, someone who embodied the spirit of the Rangers more fully than anyone he had seen in years. And as Sam stood tall, Ranger tab pinned proudly on her chest, she realized the most important victory was not just surviving Ranger School. It was showing the world and herself that strength, courage, and resilience could not be measured by appearances. They had called her too pretty. They had doubted her. But she had proven beyond question that heart and determination were the ultimate measure of a warrior. Sam Carter had arrived as a soldier underestimated, mocked, and dismissed. She left as a legend, a symbol of courage, and a living testament that no stereotype could define her. And in the quiet of that moment, with the wind sweeping across the training grounds and the other recruits looking on with awe, Sam whispered to herself, "Let them doubt. Let them mock. I showed them all because she had and she always would.